You just...
Good afternoon, everyone. Or I say afternoon because it's still, the sun is still out, so it feels like afternoon. It's actually evening. And welcome to the Wilshire Boulevard Temple concert fundraiser for the people of the Ukraine. Thank you so much for joining us today. Because of your generosity, you should know that we raised about $21,000. This concert is dedicated to the people of Ukraine, to those who are fighting valiantly to save their country, and to the close to, at this point, 3 million refugees who have fled to seek safety and escape from the onslaught in their country. At this point, the war in the Ukraine has displaced 1 out of every 5 people. Cities have been destroyed, thousands have been killed, and as the Torah teaches, do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. We must act, we must help, we must open our hands and our hearts at this terrible time for the people of Ukraine, among whom are 300,000 Jews. So why a concert, you might ask, and why for Purim? First of all, I felt this year it would just be inappropriate to have a regular Purim celebration. How could we laugh and dance and drink and act silly when people are going through such hard times? I decided, and I hope you agree, that this year Purim should focus more on some of the more serious aspects of the story. Also, there is a long history of Jewish life in the Ukraine, starting as far back as the 10th century. We know it's been a checkered history. We know that it contained anti-Semitism, some terrible pogroms, and the terrible tragedy of the Holocaust. But it also contained a rich legacy of Jewish creativity. The Hasidic movement began in the Ukraine with the Baal Shem Tov, and further developed by his great-grandson, Reb Nachman of Breslov. Thousands and thousands of Hasidim from all over the world until recently used to go and visit his grave. Golda Meir was from the Ukraine. Shalom Aleichem. Chaim Nachman Bialik, who is considered the poet laureate of Israel. Zev Jabotinsky, as well as very many other Jewish writers and scientists and scholars. And now we have Volodymyr Zelensky, not just a Ukrainian national hero, but a world hero. Klezmer music began there, and in later centuries, some of our greatest musicians came from there. Vladimir Horowitz and Isaac Stern, and some other Ukrainian composers, one of whose music we will hear today. Recently, on Facebook, I saw something very beautiful. I saw a young Ukrainian violinist in a basement, a bomb shelter, playing violin, and then it cut to 90 violinists all over the world playing with him. They played to protest and to prove that we are all one. They played because music is a universal language that transcends all other languages, national boundaries, religions, politics, and cultures, and connects us to the highest part of our humanity. Music is the expression of hope and truth and faith in our highest ideals. The Hasidic masters believed that music contained the power of healing and an ability to influence and even change the world. Tonight, we are honored to have 4 esteemed musicians with us to help us transcend our differences and connect with the power of music. Musicians who actually came to us. The cantor and I were at a clergy retreat. It was the end of the retreat. We were talking about what would we do for Purim. We were sitting outside eating lunch, and Don Cantor-Gurney got an email from Keren, Schweitzer, and Jason Lippman saying, we want to offer our services to do something for the Ukraine. And we're so grateful to have them with us. If you look at the back of your program, you will see their biographies, which are, this is an abridged version of such talented people, but I'd like you to please welcome Keren Schweitzer on flute, Jason Lippman on cello. So Dennis Karmazyn, where are you? Are you here? Dennis Karmazyn on cello also, who will be joining us. And Vanessa Fadial on piano. As for Purim, since Russia invaded the Ukraine, it's very possible to read Esther, the book of Esther, in a new way. But first, a little music by Bach. if you want to understand the current war in Ukraine, we can actually find some enlightening parallels in the book of Esther. We read there that Haman decided to murder all the Jews without any intelligible reason. What happened?
It's okay.
When Haman saw that Mordecai, oh, that's right. Okay, we're not reading it yet. In a minute. Okay, okay.
But it's good to know that you were listening
You're
carefully.
In a minute. When saw that Mordecai would not kneel or bow down before him, he was filled with rage. He then decides to murder all the Jews and pay Ahasuerus handsomely for the right to do so. And what of Russia today? When Putin saw that Zelensky and the Ukrainians would not kneel nor bow down before him, he was filled with rage. And he decided to invade Ukraine without any provocation. In both cases, a megalomaniac with absolute power did something outrageous without any provocation, just because he wanted to and had the power to do so. Okay. Chapter 3 of the Megillah, verses 1 through 5. I'll do them in English first, and then we'll hear them in Hebrew. After these events, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, son of Hamdata, the Agagite, and advanced him. He placed his seat above all his fellow ministers. All the king's servants at the king's gate kneeled and bowed before Haman. But so had the king commanded concerning him. But Mordecai would not kneel or bow. The king's servants at the king's gate said to Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the king's command?" Finally, when they said this to him day after day, and he did not listen to them, they informed Haman, to see if Mordecai's words would endure, for he had told them that he would never bow because he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel or bow before him, he was filled with wrath. But he thought it contemptible to only kill Mordecai, for they had informed him of Mordecai's nationality. Haman sought to annihilate all the Jews, Mordecai's people, throughout Ahasuerus' entire kingdom.
Achar harvarim haele kidal hamelech Ahasuerus et Haman. ונבדת הגגי וינשאו וישם את כיסו מעל כל השרים אשר איתו וכל עבדי המלך אשר בשער המלך קוראים ומשתחווים להמן. כי כן ציווה לו המלך ומרדכי לא יקרא ולא ישתחווה ויאמרו עבדי המלך אשר בשער המלך למרדכי מדוע אתה עובר את מצוות המלך ויהי כי אומרם אליו יום ויום ולא שמע עליהם ויגידו להמן לראות יעמדו דברי מרדכי כי יגלהם אשר הוא יהודי וירא המן כי אין מרדכי קורא ומשתחווה לו וימלא המן חמה ויבז בעיניו לשלוח יד במרדכי לבדו כי ידעו לו את עם מרדכי ויבקש המן להשמיד את כל היהודים אשר בכל מלכות אחשוורוש עם מרדכי. Alexander Krein was born in Russia in the 19th century. He would be trained at the Moscow Conservatory. He came from a family of gifted musicians. Both his parents were highly regarded violinists, and both of his brothers as well. He also became a brilliant composer. He was one of the six original members of the Society for Jewish Folk Song in Russia. He wrote numerous works, many beautiful songs in Yiddish, many serious works for piano, violin, chamber musicians. Tonight, we hear this exquisite piece, Elegy for Flute, Cello, and Piano.
In Persia, some 2,500 years ago, the Jews reacted in 3 stages. The first stage was shock or confusion. The king sat down to drink in the city of Shushan was confused. Furthermore, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and cried a loud, bitter cry. Every province at the king's command and decree reached, there was great mourning among the Jews with fasting, weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. We have seen the same thing in the war in Ukraine. The first stage was shock. No one believed that Putin would do such an immensely foolish and evil thing. After all, it made no more sense to invade Ukraine than it made sense for Haman to destroy all the Jews of Persia. It's okay. The second stage in Persia was diplomacy. Mordecai sent Esther to fight Haman's decree warn her and charge her to go to the king and to appeal to him for the people. Esther immediately undertook the dangerous diplomatic mission, and in the course of 2 banquets, brilliantly convinced Ahasuerus to hang Haman. Similarly, in Ukraine, the second stage was diplomacy. When President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is a true hero, he has conducted in a brilliant fashion. Like Esther, he appealed for his people to the EU, NATO, the UN, Israel, and to the US Congress to provide arms, supplies, an economic boycott, and a no-fly zone. Whatever it takes to save his people and his country. The next Megillah reading is, Then the king and Haman came to drink with Queen Esther. And on the second day, the king said to Esther during the wine feast, "What is your plea, Queen Esther? It will be granted to you. What is your request? Even if it be half the kingdom, it will be fulfilled." Queen Esther replied and said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be granted to me by my plea, and the life of my people by my request." So similar to Zelensky. "For my people and I have been sold to be annihilated, killed, and destroyed. Had we been sold as slaves and maidservants, I would have kept silent, but indeed the persecutor is not bothered by the king's loss." King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther, "Who is this? And which one is he that he has the audacity to do such a thing?" "A man who is a persecutor and an enemy, the evil Haman."
ביום ההוא נתן המלך אחשוורוש לאסתר המלכה את בית המן. It's either Haman or Haman in Hebrew or English. Either case, blot out his name. סורר היהודים ומרדכי בא לפני המלך כי ידע אסתר מהו לה ויסר המלך את טבתו אשר העביר מהמן ויתנה למרדכי ותשם אסתר את מרדכי על בית המן ותוסף אסתר, ותדבר לפני המלך, ותיפול לפני רגליו, ותבק, ותיתן לו להעביר את רת המן. הגגי בית מחשבתו, אשר חשב על היהודים, ויושת המלך לאסתר, את שרביט הזהב, ותקום אסתר, ותעמוד לפני המלך, ותאמר אם על המלך טוב ואת מצאתי כן לפניו וכאשר הדבר לפני המלך וטובה אני בעיניו ייכתב להשיב את הסברים מחשבת המן בין עבדת הגגי אשר כתב לייבד את היהודים אשר בכל מדינות המלך כי אחיך אוכל וראיתי פרעה אשר ימצא את עמי ואיכך אוכל וראיתי באבדן מולדתי.
I now invite Dennis Karmazyn to grace us with the cello suite by Paul Tortelier.
Paul Tortelier was one of the great virtuoso cellists of the 20th century, born to a French Catholic family, but an agnostic, toured all over the world as one of the great cello virtuosos. Also a very talented composer. He was inspired by Bach, I believe, to compose this suite for cello. I also learned that in 1948, he became so enamored with the new state of Israel, he took his wife and his children and moved to Israel and lived on a kibbutz there for 3 years. Cello Suite by Paul Tortelier.
In 6 movements.
Yeah. This suite by Tortelier, incidentally, I did study with him after high school at the Paris Conservatory of Music. And the suite is in 6 movements. The beginning of the suite is called Prelude, which is basically the introduction. And this is more or less a contemporary example of Bach. Bach being Baroque, this is a more contemporary example of what his vision was, of what a more modernistic approach to Bach could be. And the movements are entitled Prelude, Allemande, Courant, Sarabande. Jason played a beautiful sarabande we just heard. And the sarabande that Tortelier wrote is entirely different. But it does have elements of Baroque music that you'll hear, and I'll try to bring out the dance quality of the movements. But the introduction, which is the prelude, basically introduces the suite.
So to conclude in our Megillah reading, the first reaction was shock. The second reaction was diplomacy. And then the third stage was war. We are informed in chapter 9, most people don't read this part of the Megillah, that the Jews gathered in their cities to attack those who sought their harm, and Jews struck at their enemies with the sword. And the rest of the Jews who were in the king's provinces likewise gathered and fought for their lives and disposed of their enemies. Similarly, the third stage in the Ukraine is war. Putin thought that he would march into Ukraine. Yeah, we could do that for Putin. Putin thought that he would march into Ukraine unopposed, impose a puppet regime, and occupy Ukraine. But just like in ancient Persia, he succeeded in uniting the entire Ukrainian people against him, including 16,000 volunteers from abroad, including a lot of Israelis, by the way. As many as 12,000 Russian soldiers have already been killed, and many more have surrendered. The last reading. Sorry. Now Mordecai recorded these events and sent letters to all the Jews living throughout the provinces of King Ahasuerus, near and far, instructing them to obligate themselves to celebrate annually the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar, like the days upon which the Jews were relieved of their enemies, and the month which had been transformed for them from one of sorrow to joy, from mourning to festivity, making them days of feasting, rejoicing, sending food portions one to another, and giving gifts to the poor.
ויקטור מרדכי את הדברים האלה, וישלח ספרים את כל היהודים, אשר בכל מדינות המלך אחשוורוש, הקרובים והרחוקים, לקיים עליהם להיות עושים את יום 14 לחודש אדר, ואת יום 15 בו בכל שנה ושנה קיימים, אשר נחו בהם היהודים מאויביהם, והחודש אשר מפח להם מיגון לשמחה ומעבר ליום טוב לעשות אותם ימי משתה ושמחה ומשלוח מנות איש לרעהו ומתנות לאביונים. Now it's time for Prokofiev, who needs really no introduction, one of the truly great composers of the 20th century, born in the Ukraine. We hear now the scherzo from Sonata in D major for flute and piano.
Before our final piece and then our dessert Hamantaschen reception, which I know we're all looking forward to.
Did you say Haman Taschen?
Woo, yes.
I thought I heard that.
What can we do? Esther says to Ahasuerus, how can I bear to see the evil that will befall my people? How will I bear to see the destruction of my kindred? The great sage Maimonides said, it is preferable for a person to increase his donations to the poor than to be lavish in the preparation of the Purim feast. In other words, the main thing on Purim is not to overeat, get drunk, or celebrate, but to give money to the poor and to gladden the hearts of the unfortunate. And what is of the future? We just hope and pray that this war will end quickly. In the meantime, we must do everything in our power to help the Jews of the Ukraine and the people of the Ukraine. For all Jews are responsible for one another, as well as any non-Jew who asks for help. For whoever sustains one soul, according to the Talmud, whoever saves one life saves a whole world. We conclude with, where's our program? I don't have it. Yes, I do. You have it? Tell us what we're concluding with. The Martinu.
Bohuslav Martinu, a Czech composer, 20th century composer, much like the great Czech composer who preceded him, Dvorak, focused a great deal on folk song for his inspiration. And we hear this brilliant and delightful and uplifting section from the composition of Martinu with our trio. We owe a great debt to our brilliant musical artists this evening, to Dennis Karmazyn, to Keren Schweitzer, to Jason Lippman, to Vanessa Fadial, who whose great generosity of spirit and compassion and artistry made this evening happen. And we hope this is not the last time. Keren and Jason and I have talked about this numerous times, right? And then COVID intervened about creating a chamber music series at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. So we hope that happens. Yeah. So, thank you all for coming. Special desserts in the next room.